पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। वेलकम ऑल।
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
हरे कृष्णा दंडवत प्रणाम। Okay, so you're doing good. So how was your chanting in the morning?
It's very nice, very blissful.
Very blissful, Prabhu.
Okay, very good. So we'll continue to read from where we left last class. Okay. Where Vidura came and chastised Yudhishthira and, sorry, not Yudhishthira, Dhritarashtra and his wife, Gandhari, about their kind of situation and the life that they're leading, which is actually miserable. He cites many examples. And finally, he was able to understand and hear Vidura's comments. So Dhritarashtra and his wife decided to go with Vidura in search of solace, in search of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or self-realization. So this led to the point where Yudhishthira is very disturbed that how come my uncle left the palace without informing anyone. He commented that the entire cause of his uncle's leaving or departing, that he being the root cause, he did not probably take care of them or whatever it may be, by which he demonstrated great sattvic qualities or devotional qualities, I would say. Then the conversation between he and Sanjaya, and then at the end of the conversation between he and Sanjaya, Narada Muni appears. And Narada Muni appears to clarify the real situation of what happened to Dhritarashtra. So now we are in that context. So Narada Muni is dispelling the anxiety, the lamentation that Yudhishthira is having due to the departure of his uncles, both Vidura and Dhritarashtra. Okay. So now this chapter has about 15 more slokas. We'll try and cover all of them today because some of them are more informatory in nature. So we should be able to cover about 15 slokas today. Okay. So text 44, Canto 1, chapter 13. Yanmanyase dhruvam lokam adhruvam vana chovayam sharvata nahi sochayaste sneha anyatra mohajat. Translation. O king, in all circumstances, whether you consider the soul being an eternal principle or the material body to be perishable, or everything to exist in the impersonal absolute truth, or everything to be an inexplicable combination of matter and spirit, feeling of separation, are due to illusionary and affection and nothing more. So what is Naradaji is commenting? He said, you use the word sarvata. Sarvata here refers to in all circumstances, in all situations, not only at the time of death, even in the regular time of our maintenance and our living. Snehat anyatra mohajat. Snehat means due to affection. Okay. We have affection due to our bodily relationship with others. Okay. And he says anyatra means either it could be sneha, that means because we are having that bodily relationship, or the soul is bewildered about events that are happening in the life, suddenly shocking. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless, like that. That's what it says. Sneha dhanyatra mohajat. Right? Now, so Narada Muni is concluding, Yudhishthir, all your feelings of anxiety that your uncles have left is because of your illusion. Okay? Because of the Mahamaya's aspect, which tells the truth as false and false as truth. And it also induces the paradoxes in one's heart. So Narada Muni is dispelling that from Yudhishthir. Now, is Yudhishthir really in ignorance? No. When the 10 questions with the Yaksha happened, Yudhishthir was giving one of the topmost answers. Right? That means Yudhishthir knew everything. So this, he is showing this, demonstrating this behavior for the benefit of the living entities like you and me. Okay? So let's read the purport. Someone read the yellow.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The actual fact is that every living being is an individual part and parcel of the Supreme Being, and his constitutional position is subordinate cooperative service, either in his conditional material existence or in his liberated position of full knowledge and eternity. The living entity is eternally under the control of Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so look at it. All the time the living entity is under the control of the Supreme Lord only. What position? Whether you're conditioned living in the material world or you're liberated living in the spiritual world, you're always under the influence of the Supreme Lord. That's the point. In the material existence, the living entity has forgotten the state of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. That means there is an impure consciousness. So because he has forgotten the Lord, he tries to do things that gratifies his senses. But in the liberated state, is fully aware of his relationship with the Lord. So rather than gratifying his senses, he's always engaged in the service of the Lord. And that's what gives him spiritual bliss. Right? Some more explanation. In our daily experience, we find so many transformations of matter from one form to another, but we do not lament such changing features. Is it not true? While cooking, while our day-to-day activities, while taking bath, so many things that we see, there is continuously changing. Even our own body is changing every day. You see, take our photo 5 years back, it's different from today. So in either of the above cases, the force of divine energy is uncheckable. That means we can't understand the speed and the power of the divine energy. So no one has any hand in it, and thus there is no cause of grief. Whatever is happening today due to Kala and Karma are out of our control. Can we stop anything in nature? Can we stop anything in our life? Nothing. It just runs towards a particular direction under the influence and the guidance of the Lord. Now, since we don't have any control or we don't have a role to play in it, in this material transformations of this world, why keep bothering about it? Why keep lamenting about it? So what we need to do, we need to only focus on our goals and destiny towards how we can serve the Lord. Don't get worried about financial loss. Don't get worried about this loss. Don't get worried about that loss. It's beyond your control. You cannot change anything in this world. Right? So this is what Naradaji is instructing Yudhishthir. So do not lament that your uncles have left without informing you. Okay, so let's read further. 13.45. Tasma jahi anga vaiklavyam ajnana kritam atmanah katam to antah kripana varteram ste chamam vina. Translation. Therefore, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. A person who is fully knowledgeable, a person who is fully self-realized will never have anxiety on the material plane, but you will have anxiety on the spiritual plane. What is anxiety on the spiritual plane? How can I serve my Lord better? How can I, improve the quality of my service to the Lord? How can I please Him? How can I please the Vaishnavas? That sort of lamentation, that sort of anxiety will exist. And that's the key there. Okay. Let's look at the purport now. Someone read?
Hare Krishna. When we think of our kith and kin, as being helpless and dependent on us, it is all due to ignorance. Every living creature is allowed all protection by the order of the Supreme Lord in terms of each one's acquired position in the world. The Lord is known as Bhava,
No, Bhuta.
Bhuta,
Breath.
Bhuta
Breath.
Bhuta, one who gives protective to all living beings. One should discharge his duties only. For no one but the Supreme Lord can give protection to anyone else. This is explained more clearly in the following verse. Thank you, Prabhu. Because of my surgery, I was unable to read it correctly.
No
Because
problem.
of this thing.
But your enthusiasm to read surpasses all those mistakes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so now look at look at the fact that Yudhishthira Maharaj is thinking, I am his kith and kin. Oh, I am younger, I am like his son. Even though I want to protect him, not able to protect him. And he is thinking in that manner. But what Naradaji is trying to explain is, he is explaining that it is because your anxiety is due to your ignorance, right? So what he says, you give up your anxiety. Why? Because the Lord is the one who protects. Not only your uncle. If there are a million living entities in this world, everyone Lord is protecting. The Lord is protecting the human beings, the Lord protecting the animals, the Lord protecting everything in this world. You're not the protector. And how you're not the protector is what he's going to explain in the next verse. Okay. So 46. Kala karmo gunadino dehyam pancha bhautikaha katam anyamstu gopayet sarpagrasto yataparam. Now he says, Kala, karma, and guna are the three things that are acting on every living entity at every point in time. We cannot control Kala, time. We cannot control karma. It is already dissipating what we have performed in the past. We are not superior to karma. Then guna, the three modes of material nature. It continues to act on every living entity. And how? It says, Dehoyam Panchabhutika. Now this body, which is made of Panchabhuta. Right? Bhumi, Rapo, Nala, Vayu, Kam, Mano, Buddhir, Evacha. Right? So now let's see what Naradaji is going to speak about this here. This gross material body is made up of 5 elements, is already under the control of eternal time, Kala, karma, and modes of material nature. That means, moment a living entity lands in this material world, he is under the influence of 3. Kala, karma, and guna. So that means these 3 things are compared to a serpent, right? You must have seen a snake, devouring snake. Snake means, here the devouring snake refers to a python and not to a cobra. Python, what does it do? It completely devours food. Slowly and slowly and slowly pushes the body into itself. And over a period of time, it completely eats and digests. Right? So it says this time and scala is like a devouring snake, like a python. Right? So as every minute and every day progresses, we are slowly getting into this serpent kala, into its mouth. And that mouth is the mouth of death. Right? So if we sleep today and get up tomorrow, we are one day closer to death. In a month's time, we are a month closer to death. So that's where we are heading towards death. So this death is compared to a serpent for 2 kinds of personalities. The serpent looks very devouring and dangerous for non-devotees, people who are not practicing bhakti yoga. But who are devotees who are practicing, this kala looks like a manifestation of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So that is how the destiny between these 2 personalities vary. Right? So can someone read this pink quickly? Yeah, someone read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah. Read.
Venkat here.
Yes,
The
Prabhu.
world movements for the freedom through political, economic, social, and cultural propaganda can do no benefit to anyone, for they are controlled by the supreme power. A conditioned living being is under the full control of material nature, represented by eternal time and activities under the direction of different
Dictation.
modes of nature.
Dictation.
Under the dictation of different modes of nature. There are three material modes of the nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. Unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, one cannot see the things as they are. The passionate and the ignorant cannot even see the things as they are. There is a person who is passionate and ignorant cannot direct his activities on the right path. Only the man in the quality of goodness can help to a certain extent. Most persons are passionate and ignorant, and therefore their plans and projects can hardly do any good to others. Above the modes of the nature is eternal time, which is called Kala, because it changes the shape everything in the material world. Even if we are able to do something temporarily beneficial, time will see that good project is frustrated in course of time. The only thing that is possible done is to get rid of eternal time, Kala, which is compared to Kala Sarpa, or the cobra snake, who bites always lethal. No one can be saved from the bite of the cobra. The best remedy for getting out of the clutches of this cobra-like Kala are its integrity, the modes of nature, the Bhakti Yoga. As it is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, the highest perfectional project of philanthropic activities is to engage everyone in the act of preaching Bhakti Yoga all over the world, because that alone can save the people from the control of Maya, or the material nature represented by Kala, Karma, and Guna. As described above, the Bhagavad Gita confirms this definitely. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna 14.26. So what is the conclusion? What is Narada Muni instructing? The Kala and Karma and Kala, Karma, Guna are the three instruments of the Lord by which he controls the entire creation, maintenance, and destruction of this material world. So the Lord is the protector and Lord is the savior. The second point is, Yudhishthira, you are also under the same influence of Kala, Karma, and Guna. How can you save your uncle? It's like this. Let's say there are two people in the jail and they're caged in two separate cells. One prisoner is thinking that, oh, the other prisoner is suffering and, he's old, he cannot take care of it and things like that, what he will do out of pain. But who's thinking? The other prisoner. He's also under the same jail. So, Narada is trying to tell you this, you're also affected by Kala, Karma, and Guna. So how can you save him? You cannot save him. The person who is beyond the three modes of material nature is the only savior for all the living entities, and hence that is the ignorance that is dissipating from the hearts of Yudhishthira. Right? So, Yudhishthira, you should completely remove your anxiety out of your heart. Lord will take care of the destiny of your uncles. Right? So that's the conversation that Narada Muni is having with Yudhishthira. Now let's look at the next sloka, 37. 47. Agastani sahastanam apadani chatuspadam falguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam. So what is jivo jivasya jivanam? Very, very important to understand. He says, by design, the Lord has created this material world in a particular fashion. What is that? If you take all the living entities, starting from animals to the human beings, there is one living entity who is more stronger and powerful than the other living entity. So by design, a living entity can live by eating another living substance only. It cannot eat rocks and mud and stones and things like that to survive. So, who will eat whom? The stronger will eat the weaker. And that is the nature. So now Naradaji is telling Yudhishthir that you should not get worried when a tiger eats a deer. When someone is so much worried, oh, tiger is eating a poor deer, what will do? That is out of his ignorance. But that's the nature. That's the design of nature. If the tiger doesn't eat the deer, that the tiger cannot eat any food, then the tiger will die. Someone has to die. So that is the point to understand here. So human beings also need to live on other living entities, and there is no doubt about it. But what's the point to understand out of this? The point is the human beings eat other living entities which are lowest in the level of consciousness, not in the highest level of consciousness. So, for example, if you take the living being tables, the mammals are the highest evolved consciousness, and the trees, plants are the lowest in the evolution of the consciousness. So, the man has to, or the human beings will have to only subsist and living on such as the food of plants and trees. It is also substantiated by Bhagavad Gita, where Lord says that you can only eat what can be offered to me. You cannot eat what is not offered to me. So what can be offered to me? You cannot offer fish and eggs and meat to me. You can only offer nice fruits and vegetables and leaves. So hence you can only accept that. Now why you need to accept that? Because the goal of the human being is to reach the lotus feet of the Lord. So that means the goal is all in the path of self-realization. If the goal is in the path of self-realization, how can you eat things that are not acceptable to the Lord and still realize the Lord? You cannot. So you have to eat things that can be offered to the Lord, and that will lead you to self-realization. Krishna confirms this in chapter 9, text 26. Patram pushpam phalam toyam name bhakta prayaschati tadartham upahartam asnamena prayatatmana. So when these things are offered, what do I do in return? First, when they're offered with love, I take them. When I take them and I'm pleased by your service, I reciprocate back to you. What is that reciprocation? The reciprocation is realizing the position or a relationship with Krishna. That is called self-realization. Realizing one's actual position as a servant of the Supreme Lord, realizing his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, and finally that realization will lead to active service, which is devotional service, and that will lead to Bhakti Yoga. Lord says, that is how I reciprocate. When I reciprocate, I, as a Paramatma in the heart of the living entity, I give that knowledge. Right? So this is the fact. So this is why human beings will have to restrain themselves by eating foods that can be offered to the Lord. Okay. So can someone read the yellow ones here?
Hare Krishna.
Ah.
Maharaja Yudhishthira is advised by Narada not to worry about his uncles suffering for want of food, for they could live on vegetables available in the jungles as prasada of the Supreme Lord and thus realize the path of salvation. Exploitation of the weaker living being by the stronger is the natural law of existence. There is always an attempt to devour the weak in different kingdoms of living beings. There is no possibility of checking this tendency by any artificial means under the material conditions. It can be checked only by awakening the spiritual sense of the human being by practice of spiritual revelations. The blind leaders must therefore understand the Supreme Being and then try to implement the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God, or Ramarajya, is impossible without the awakening of God consciousness in the mass mind of people of the world. Hare Krishna.
So that is the key now. So by all this practice of spirituality, right, following the regulations and the rules designed by the Lord in his plan, one can never awaken God consciousness. If God consciousness is not awakened, then we are far away from the Lord. Okay, so how to understand this example? If I have a light bulb in a big hall, right, in the center, If I'm close to the bulb, that you see that I get the maximum understanding of what is near me because the intensity of the light will be the highest. As I go far away, far away, far away from that light source, even though the light source is visible, but I will not get the benefit of that light source because nothing will be visible around me. That means this non-visibility and visibility is nothing but the factor of ignorance. The closer we are to the Lord, all the ignorance that is caused in our life, that we do mistakes and perform sinful activities, are dissipated. Farther away from the Lord, all this ignorance, they manifest in us. So, the conclusion is always stay in association of devotees, always stay by chanting the holy names of the Lord, always take shelter of the Lord at every point in time. And that is perfection of knowledge. When there is perfection of knowledge, we are able to think correctly, we are able to do our activities perfectly. And that is the goal of the human life, right? So when we have such goals clear in our heart and practice towards it, Lord says, that is when Ram Rajya will happen, right? There will be peace and serenity and happiness across the entire kingdom because there is God consciousness in the heart of all the living entities. Okay? So what we do, we create what is called as a Vaishnava community. What is this Vaishnava community? Is basically a society or a community of people, 100, 200, 500,000, whatever it may be, who we have awakened the consciousness in the heart of them. So that means such people, which is this community of people who are all awakened God consciousness in whatever degree according to their practice, they will understand each other and they will practice together to achieve greater goals of life. If we don't have this kind of association, then what happens? We are farther and farther away from the Lord. Then you see this object of self-realization, this practice of God consciousness will never happen in our heart, or it slowly diminish. We may think, oh, I know everything. I am perfect. I can live without anyone. That's how Maya makes us to think, which is a dangerous situation. Okay? So Prabhupada said, you can live anything in your life. Whatever you want, you can leave, but don't leave association of devotees. That is the most important thing at every point in time. Okay? So now let's look at the next sloka. So now you see how Yudhishthira is being clarified with Naradaji. Now, two things very important to understand. Yudhishthira himself is very scholarly. Okay? Because, if you see his ability to speak, his ability to quote Shastras, ability to analyze the truth, the right and the wrong, Yudhishthira is very powerful. But still, such a powerful personality is guided by a guru or a practicing devotee. So that means each one of us need to be guided at all points in time. Moment we say, I don't want guidance, moment we say, I don't want any reporting authority, that is, we are going down the path of hell. Moment we say, no, I want association of devotees, I always want to be mentored and guided in this path of self-realization, that means we are going up towards the path of the lotus feet of the Lord. This is very important realization we need to have. Difficulties could be there in our life. Where there is no difficulties. The Pandavas were permanent, eternal associates of the Lord. Did they not face difficulties? Yes. Nanda Maharaj, being the father of Krishna, he went into many situations. Right? A snake devoured him. So you think he did not have tribulations? No, he also had. Who doesn't have tribulations in the material world? All of us have difficulties. The only thing is, take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam at all points in time. Right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. These three things should be the order of life day to day, every minute in our life. And how do we do? In association of devotees, not alone. Okay. Let's go to sloka number 48. At any point in time you have doubts, you can stop and ask me. Okay. Tat idan Bhagavan Rajan eka atmanam svadirk antaro anantaro bhati pashyatam maya yoruda. Therefore, O king, you should look at the Supreme Lord only, who is without a second and who manifests himself by different energies in both within and without. Right? Within, he manifests as Paramatma, and without, he manifests, that means internally, he manifests as Paramatma to constantly guide us, to protect us, to give us the knowledge. And externally, he is available in the form of Bhagavatam, books, in the form of Archa Vigraha, in the form of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, right? In all these three aspects, he is present and he is guiding us. So, a soul who's realized this, he will take shelter of Paramatma, he'll take shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to reach the lotus feet of the Supreme Bhagavan Krishna. Right? So that's the point here. So Antaro Anyantaro Bhati, that means internally and externally. He's existing and he's manifesting. Okay. Okay. Though I highlighted it, there is a small aspect of how do we cooperate to do this realization. Okay. So can someone read these highlights?
Hare Krishna. Since the spiritual world is a manifestation of the Lord's internal energy, the living being within that internal potency are qualitatively one with the Lord without contamination from the eternal potency. External potency. Although qualitatively one with the Lord, the living being due to contamination of the material world is pervertedly manifested, and therefore he experiences so-called happiness and distress in the material world. Such experiences are all ephemeral and do not affect the spirit soul. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
There is, however, a regular current from the Lord himself, from within and without, by which to rectify the fallen condition of the living being. From within, he corrects the desiring living beings as localized Paramatma, and from without, he corrects by his manifestations. The spiritual master and the revealed scriptures, one should look unto the Lord. One should not be disturbed by the so-called manifestations of happiness or distress, but should try to cooperate with the Lord in his outward activities for correcting the fallen souls. By his order only, one should become a spiritual master and cooperate with the Lord. One should not become a spiritual master for one's personal benefit, for some material gain, or as an avenue of business or occupation for earning a livelihood.
Yudhishthira Maharaj is advised.
Yudhishthira Maharaj is advised by Narada, therefore, not to be disturbed by the affairs of so-called happiness and distress, but to look only unto the Lord to execute the mission for which the Lord has descended. That was his prime duty. Hare Krishna.
Prime duty. Okay. So the conclusion is very clear. The Lord is the guiding factor. He is the Chaitya Guru. He is the Guru for all of us at all points in time. Internally and externally, he guides. So now what happens in our day-to-day life? We see that there are many material interactions that keeps bewildering us. Oh, this good thing has happened, this bad thing has happened, this good thing has happened, this bad thing happened. What we do, we get dragged into that and try to go into the details, how to solve it, how to correct, how to make it perfect. He says, don't waste your time on that. Don't waste your time on all these bewilderments that happens in this material world. They will be like passing clouds. You know what is passing clouds? If you see the sky, suddenly you will see the cloud coming. It'll become dark, it'll pour water, and in no matter of time, it'll disappear. Right? So you should not lament that the cloud has not come, and you should not lament that the cloud has come and poured the water. Nothing. It is just the plan of action of the Lord. Similarly, many events in our life also happens by the plan of the Lord. You should be able to realize the hands of the Lord in every event in our life, both material and spiritual. What we need to do? Ignore them. You should set your goal. What should be the goal? Whatever is your ashrama dharma. If you're a grihastha, what's your dharma? If it's a vanaprastha, what's your dharma? If it's a brahmachari, what's your dharma? Go on executing these prescribed duties by taking shelter of association of devotees, taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and taking the instructions of your spiritual master. Only these three things to be your goal. Always focus on these three things and go on. Don't get bewildered with what has happened. If something has happened to you good, okay, enjoy it. If something doesn't happen good to you, don't lament. Move on, move on. That's the point. Okay. So let's look at 49.
Prabhu,
So,
what
yeah.
is ephemeral?
Yes, Mataji.
What is ephemeral, Prabhu?
Ephemeral is
Short period.
when I'm just trying to. Where is ephemeral put here?
Prabhu, it is a short period, Prabhu.
Yeah, but contextual meaning we didn't know.
Such experiences are the last highlight, Prabhu. First highlight and the last line.
Ephemeral. Okay. So ephemeral here is continuously changing. Continuously changing means what? One that will not long last for a period of time. Right? It'll happen and it'll stay for a very short period of time and it'll again go away. Again it'll happen, again it'll go away. So the situations constantly keep changing. Okay. These change of situation cannot affect the supreme soul, the Jivatma. It is its service to the Lord. Okay. So that's what Prabhupada used to say. Prabhupada says, do not get bewildered about your material conditions. Always focus on your duty. If there is a service for you, if there is something ready to do, keep on doing it. Oh, Prabhu, I have headaches, I won't come to the class. Oh, Prabhu, I have some engagement, some material engagement, so I will not do some spiritual activity. So don't. This is your prime duty. Do not get disturbed by all these things because they're short-lived. They come, they go. They come, they go.
Can we say it is negligible, Prabhu?
It can, no, you cannot say negligible because negligible means that doesn't impact you, but it may impact you. My point is, whether it impacts you or doesn't impact you, don't get bothered. Okay. If it is negligible, we use the word negligible, then what happens? The effect of that may not impact you at all because you don't bother.
Yeah. Oh, correct. Oh.
But what if it is significant? It will impact you. But whether it is significant or negligible, whether it impacts or doesn't impact, still it should not bother you. That's the point.
Mm.
Prabhu, this Bhagavad Gita 2.14, Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's the same thing. Okay. So, as devotees, we need to tolerate. Tolerate for ourselves, tolerate for others. What does tolerate for others means? People will act in a crazy manner at all points in time. Don't get disturbed. Just tolerate. Okay? But be sensitive for them. Oh, if someone is coming and saying, Prabhu, I can't eat on an unclean plate. I have to eat on a speck and, this thing plate, which is closed with a plantain leaf. Only then I'll serve like that eat. You may know that it is artificial, it's very external nature, but just be sensitive to it. Okay, maybe the time will come that you'll realize. Then you still make that arrangement and give it to him. But over a period of time, Lord will teach him. Then he'll realize, oh, these are all externals. I don't give importance to it. That's the point.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, the dictionary meaning is lasting for a very short time.
Yeah. Ever changing also is lasting for a short period. If something keeps changing, it's not lasting, right? It's very short-lived. Right? Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the next sloka, 13.49. Soyam adya maharaja bhagavan bhuta bhavanaha kala rupo tirno sham avavaya surat dvisham. That Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. So now Naradaji is referring. Now I refer to all this one Supreme Bhagavan, but who is he? He is that same Lord Krishna who's there as your cousin, who is the son of Yashoda and Nanda, and who currently as the king of Dwarka. He is that same person who has come to this world. For what purpose? Right? There are many living entities who are behaving like asuras, to eliminate them so that devotees who are really wanting to practice devotion service, they will get the space to practice devotion. Otherwise, what's happening? Sincere souls also are not getting the time and space to practice. And it's my responsibility and duty to give that. Can you read the purport? This is a very beautiful
Hare
purport.
Krishna Prabhu. Shall I read, Prabhu?
Read. Yeah.
There are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. Since the Supreme Lord is one and the Father of all living beings, the envious living beings are also his sons, but they are known as the Asuras. But the living beings who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devatas or demigods, because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. He is not at all dangerous, but he is the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. For the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears like Kala Rupa, which is causal form. This causal form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the Asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless in order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Clear description. Who's an Asura and who's a devotee. All right. For devotee, the Lord comes personally. For non-devotees, he comes as Kala and very dangerous. Right. So if anyone says that the Lord is impersonal, he is just giving up a cover-up to the whole thing. Right. And that cover-up is like the august form. They said, okay, so we will not be disturbed by this. So that means anyone who's not a devotee of the Lord is actually an Asura. That's what it means. Okay. This means like this in an in-depth meaning. So don't get too much worried. If anyone has worried about that statement, you can call me personally and explain you the detail. Okay. Okay. Now let's go to the next sloka, 50th. So now Naradaji is concluding the position of Lord with this sloka. Okay. So 13.50. Nishpaditam deva krityam avasesham pratikshate tavadyuyam avekshadvam bhavedyavad iheshwaraha. The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods and is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on the earth. So he says, don't be in anxiety, don't be in worry. Why this not happened? That's not happened. You have to give that time to the Lord for him to complete his duties. Krishna said, Yada yada hi dharmasya paritranaya sadhunam janma karma chame divyam. He said all these things. So he's going to do all these things one by one. So you need to wait. Okay. So you need to wait and you have to give the Lord his due course of time. So in this point, it is referred that while performing these activities, many of them takes different paths. So here, Naradaji is telling that your uncles also took a different path according to the level of realization they had. So what is that? In the next set of slokas, he's going to hint. What happened to your uncles? What happened to them? Where did they go? What activities they performed? So in the slokas 51 to 60, that we will see how Vidura very beautifully nurtured Dhritarashtra and took him. Now, you could ask a question, why Dhritarashtra did not do this in the previous time? That means during the time when Duryodhana was present. Vidura did attempt such things on Dhritarashtra during that time also. But what happened, every time Vidura taught Dhritarashtra, he would agree to it. He will say, yes, I will go towards it. But when Duryodhana came and forced certain things on his father, he did not have a choice. And even though he was a king, he fell for his body relationship, that is father and son, on Duryodhana, and he accepted his proposals. So that's why the Vidura's proposals could not change the heart of Dhritarashtra all this time. But now Duryodhana is gone, he's dead. So now whatever Vidura is preaching, it is making the change in the heart of Dhritarashtra. So you see, at every point in time, our association is very important. If we have a lot of spiritual devotees association, then our consciousness will uplift towards Krishna. If our association is more with materialistic people, our consciousness will keep deteriorating. So in our life, what we should do, we should have this rule. How much of material association can I have? and how much of spiritual association I can have. And accordingly, we have to keep making changes to our life. So that's why this Grihastha ashrama is a very, what do you say, tough, because you will have to deal with non-devotees, you have to deal with devotees. You have to manage your association, you have to manage your practices. So that's why Grihastha ashrama is a very actually glorious ashrama. But if you succeed in your Grihastha ashrama, it's called Grihastha brahmachari, then you see your practice of vanaprastha will be very smooth and easy. But if your Grihastha ashrama is not practiced properly, then even in vanaprastha you will struggle a lot to reach those finer aspects of devotional practices. Okay, so let's go to 13.51. So here we're going to begin where Narada Muni is going to reveal what happened to Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. And of course, Vidura also will conclude. Okay. Dhritarashtra saha bratra Gandharya cha swabharyaya dakshinena himavata rishinam ashramam gataha. So Himavata refers to Himalaya mountains, and Dakshina refers to southern region of Himalayan mountains. That means they have gone to the southern region of the Himalayan mountains into an ashrama. Okay, so let's look at the translation. O king, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidura, and his wife Gandhari, all three have gone to the southern side of the Himalayan mountains where there are shelters of great sages. Look at the destination Vidura took them. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdayate. So Vidura is now carefully taking Dhritarashtra to what is the level of mind that he is possessing, and accordingly he can take him there. Now one could argue why he could not give him Bhakti Yoga to Dhritarashtra. Because if you look at the life of Dhritarashtra, he's been very envious about his own children, Pandavas. Of course, his brother's children is his own children, right? So, but the Pandavas were associates of the Lord. That means devotees. Because of his envious nature, he committed many crimes. Right? And that crime has caused so much of resultant reactions that whatever you do, they cannot come to the platform of devotion. So, the best that they could do is either Brahman realization or Paramatma realization. It's still better than being an atheist. Right? So, that's the path that Vidura is trying to take him. Now, let's see that further. 13.52. Shroto bihi shabda biryavai Svardhuni shabtada vyadat Shabdanam priyate nana Shabda shrota prachakshate. The place is called Shabda Shrota. Shabda means 7, right? So this place is divided into 7. Okay, and there are Ganges water that go in between the 7. So they look like 7 islands, right? Our Navadvip looks like 9 islands. It is Navadvipa. Because their waters of the sacred Ganges were divided into the 7 branches, this was done for the satisfaction of the 7 great rishis. Okay, now let's look at so that's the place, this ashram where the great rishis were living. Vidura took them to that ashram. Okay, now let's look at sloka number 53. Snatvanu savanam tasmin kutva chagnin yata vidi abhaksha upashantatma sa aste vigataishanaha. So now here Narada is explaining what was that they were doing in this ashram. Okay, so he's explaining. On the banks of Shabda Shrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga. So what is Ashtanga Yoga? The 8 steps, 8 bodily postures, and then 8 steps to realize Paramatma. Okay, so what are the 8 steps? It starts with Yama, then it starts with Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So, you start with Yama. Okay, now first I will stop my sense gratification, things like that. Slowly retract my senses, right? So that's the first step of Yama. And you go through all these stages and finally reach the state of Samadhi where you fixed up your mind on the Paramatma feature of the Lord. And you get your liberation, right? So, this yoga system helps the body to prepare for a greater final destination, right? And Ashtanga Yoga is one method. So now what he was doing? By bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing Agnihotra sacrifice, and with fire, and by drinking water only. So first, the senses need pacified. Otherwise, the senses will ask for more in the Annamaya platform. Too much of food. I want to eat this, I want to eat that. I want to eat this, I want all the time eating, eating, eating. Right? This helps one control the mind and senses and frees one completely from the thoughts of familial affection. Right? So the senses need to be brought into a very stable state. When it brought to a stable state, then the mind can control the senses. Once we get sense control, then we see, okay, my relationships, my uncles and my aunts and my brothers, my children, those things, they go away. You get more focus on your body, and you will be able to get your body focused towards the lotus feet of the Lord. That's what this does, right? So hence, Naradaji is telling that they were practicing Ashtanga Yoga under the guidance of those Saptarishis that were present there, right? Can someone read the highlights?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
No,
The
if you
yoga system is the yoga
Hare
system.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. If you read once, you give chance for others.
Okay, Prabhu.
Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yes, Mother, read.
The yoga system is a mechanical way to control the senses and the mind and divert them from the matter to spirit. The preliminary processes are the sitting posture, meditation, spiritual thoughts, manipulation of the air passing within the body, and the gradual situation in trance, facing the absolute person, Paramatma. The other one also, Prabhu?
Yes, yes.
A man who has no control over the tongue at first can hardly become a yogi. Yogi and bogi are two opposite terms. The bogi, or the merry man who eats and drinks, cannot be a yogi, for a yogi is never allowed to eat and drink unrestrictedly. Restrictedly.
Restrictedly. Very good. So there are two important points. The first is practice of yoga system. Here, yoga system does not mean your yogasana posture that you do exercise. That's not what it means. It means stabilizing your mind to get to focus on the Lord. That's what the yoga system means. Okay? For the mind to get focused on the Lord, the mind has to become in trance. In trance means what? Not processing too many material activities, too many transactions, too many obligations. It's bereft of all of them. You have to get your mind into that state. One of the main ingredients of that Prabhupada is talking about is bogi and tyagi, yogi and bogi. Who's a yogi? Yogi has refrained all these, all these eating and drinking to a very simplistic manner so that the mind can focus on a greater outcome. But a bogi is always, looking, satisfying his belly, his senses. He eats and drinks. He eats whatever is possible. So then what happens? He cannot migrate himself to the higher realms and higher state of self-realization. It is impossible. Right? So that's why, as we grow up in devotion service, we have to reduce our eating. And whatever minimalistic that we eat, it should be Krishna Prasad. Without the consciousness of the Lord being present on the Prasad, there's no way that we can become a yogi. So, Prabhupada has given us a beautiful formula. What has he said? He said, chant the names of the Lord with deep meditation. Okay. Always read the actives and pastimes of the Lord. Means your senses are no more engaged in all of the material thoughts. It is getting more and more focused on the details and pastimes of the Lord and his associates. Okay. Third, start to eat limitedly in a simple manner. Eat simple food. For Brahmanas, simple food is roti, chawal, and dal, and maybe some curds, yogurt. Right? Eat simplistic food. Don't eat grandier food, expensive food. Yeah, in the initial stage of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada said, eat sumptuously, eat jamun, eat all these things, but offer to Krishna and eat. Okay, good. But as we progress, make your Krishna prasadam also simplistic in mind, because you are getting into the process of yoga. And give your time in chanting, hearing, and remembering the Lord. That is the highest stage of samadhi one can achieve. And if the Lord is pleased with you, He will be your destination at the time of death. Else, kala, guna, and karma will be the destinations of our death, which is not good for us. Okay, so that's how a devotee differentiates himself from a non-devotee. Okay, let's go to the next sloka. So now what will happen is, here we are going to again talk about how absorption bhakti yoga helps. Okay. Jitasano jita swasaha pratyahar pratyartha sad indriya haribhavanaya dvasta rajasatva tamo malaha. One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing process can turn the senses towards absolute personal Godhead and thus become immune to the contamination of the modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. The benefit of this Ashtanga Yoga is we reduce the influence of the three gunas on us. But that is the method recommended in the previous ages. And the destination of such a method is only Paramatma. So Prabhupada says that we don't follow this process, we follow process greater than that. What is it? The destination is Bhagavan. And that destination can be achieved only by Bhakti Yoga. That means by rendering loving devotion service to the Lord and His associates. Now what happens in that case? When Bhakti Yoga is practiced, when we practice Bhakti Yoga by doing active service for the pleasure of the Lord reciprocates. In Ashtanga Yoga, there is no reciprocation of the Lord. It is a one-word path. It is your own effort towards the Paramatma feature of the Lord. But here, the Lord reciprocates. So what happens to the Lord reciprocates? So for example, let's say we fall into a well. Okay? Somehow by the mercy of the Lord, there is a rope. So we are holding the rope and trying to pull ourselves upwards out of the well. Now look at this. This effort is completely ours. But it takes its own effort and time and difficulty. But you, in fact, imagine if someone is going to give you a helping hand, apart from you holding the rope, he is giving you a helping hand to pull you out of the rope, out of the well, you'll come out of it much faster and safer. And that's the mercy of the Lord. Bhakti Yoga practice will award you the mercy of the Lord. And that will make you to reach the lotus feet of the Lord much faster. Right? So that's the key to understand. Can someone read the green highlight?
Hare Krishna. The Bhakti Yoga process therefore directly applies the senses to the loving service of the Lord. This prohibits the performer from engaging in material activities. This process of turning the senses from material attachment to the loving transcendental service of the Lord is called pratyahara, and the very process is called pranayama, ultimately ending in samadhi or absorption in pleasing the Supreme Lord Hari by all means. Hare Krishna.
That's it. See, our Bhakti Yoga practices, how it reaches the end state. Say a state like Samadhi. In this Samadhi state of Bhakti Yoga, you are actually living with the Lord in all your services and activities. Your consciousness will be so much dwelling in personal service to the Lord. That is the key. And that's why Bhakti Yoga is so supreme. Okay? So let's read the next sloka. So 55. So now in this sloka, Narada Muni is telling, okay, what happened to Dhritarashtra? What did he do with his body? Right? Because Yudhishthira was thinking, okay, Lord is protecting him, so everything is fine. Lord will take care of him. Lord will give him food. Lord give him direction. Everything is done. But we have a process in the Vaishnava life that once a person dies, you have to cremate his body in a proper manner. And because body is Hrishikesha, it has to be awarded its respect, and that is when the final destination is achieved. Okay, that's why we do Srimad, we do the entire crematory process, the 10 days of mourning, and then 11th day of Vaikuntha Samaraj, and all these things that we do. Now, here Naradaji is knowing the heart of Yudhishthira. I know Yudhishthira is asking on to the next question. What is it? Okay, so now if he's going to practice all these things, he may die. What about his body? I have to go to the place where he is. I have to cremate his body and come, right? So I have the duty. So Yudhishthira is getting ready in his mind to do that, for which Naradaji is explaining what is Dhritarashtra going to do as this process of Ashtanga Yoga, and you don't have a role to play. That's what he's going to conclude. Let's see what is going to do. Vijnanatmani samyojya kshetragne pravilapyatam brahmani atmanam adare gatambaram ivambare. Translation. Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure entity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge and his qualitative oneness. As the living entity of the Supreme Brahman, being freed from the blocked sky, will have to rise to the spiritual sky. So this is the process by which one merges into the creation, right? So for example, if you look at externally, all around is all about the 8 elements. 3 subtle elements and 5 gross elements, right? So if you see the 5 elements, they all started with, earth, water, ether, fire, and air, right? So one manifested from the other. So in the reverse process going to do. The reverse process, our body, which is made up of gross elements, right? If you take our body, we have earth, we have fire, we have ether, we have mucus, that is liquids, all these things. So then now this has to be re-merged into the same process it got created. So that's the reverse process. The next after that is the subtle body. Subtle body is false intelligence, false ego, and mind, intelligence, and ego.
Mind, intelligence, false ego.
Okay, so these 3 things also will have to be merged into the creation, right? So that's what they are going to practice in Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, so this is what Narada Muni is explaining to him. So by which they will achieve what is called as oneness into the Mahatattva. From Mahatattva, all these manifested. Now they will unmanifest and go back into the Mahatattva, right? So that's what Ashtanga Yoga does. And that's what Naradaji is explaining Yudhishthira. So you don't need to worry. Okay, then it says, what about the body? So he's explaining that also in the next sloka. Dvashtamayo guna darko niruddha karanashayaha nivartita kilara aste stanur ivachalaha tashyatarayo maiva buhu sanyasta kila karmanaha. We will have to suspend all the actions of the senses even from outside, and will have to be impervious to interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, you must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrance on the path, right? So, here, okay, well, let's read the purport. Can someone read the purport?
I'll read, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Maharaja Yudhishthira was advised by Narada not to disturb his uncle by attempting to bring him back home. He was now beyond the attraction of anything material. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Yeah. So I read the green also.
Okay. The material modes of nature, the gunas, have their different modes of activities, but above the material modes of nature is a spiritual mode, which is absolute. Nirguna means without reaction. The spiritual mode and its effect are identical. Therefore, the spiritual quality is distinguished from its material counterpart by the word Nirguna. Hare Krishna.
So the conclusion is guna means material modes of nature. Nirguna means without any material modes of nature. So when we practice this yoga system, what happens? The influence of the 3 material modes of nature completely bereft, it becomes 0. And he is able to offer himself into the Mahatattva, right? Now, Prabhupada concludes that Bhakti Yoga is therefore Nirguna by direct contact with Absolute Truth. Why? Because Krishna is Nirguna. Nirguna is without any material qualities. He is full of spiritual qualities, Satchidananda. So, when a devotee is practicing Bhakti Yoga in focus of the Lord, he realizes that spiritual qualities and automatically he'll be bereft of the material qualities. And that's why Bhakti Yoga is so supreme. Okay. Now, Naradaji is going to explain him how is he going to quit his body and what will happen to his body. And you don't need to do your cremation also to your uncles. That's the point he's going to say. Moment he says that, okay, my uncle is completely cremated, he is taken care, but what about his wife Gandhari? So he'll answer to those both questions now. 57. Sava adhyatanat rajan parata panchamehani kalevaram hasyati swam tacha bashmi bhavishyati. O king, he will quit his body, most probably on the 5th day from today. So look at the knowledge of Naradaji. How much of spiritual consciousness he is, that he knows everything around what's happening. They are in Hastinapur, and while their uncles in a remote place, they don't even know where they are. And they are in the southern mountain hills somewhere near Haridwar. And Naradaji is predicting what's going to happen. Now, from today, 5th day, he will be able to reach that final stage of Samadhi, and his body will turn into ashes. That means the fire will self-immolate and burn the entire body to ashes, and that ashes will merge into the earth. Purport. Someone read the purport? Someone read the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'll
Yeah.
read. Narada Muni's prophecy prohibited Yudhishthira Maharaja from going to the place where his uncle was staying, because even after quitting the body by his own mystic power, Dhritarashtra would not be in need of any funeral ceremony. Narada Muni indicated that his body by itself would burn to ashes. The perfection of the yoga system is attained by such mystic power. The yogi is able to quit his body by his own choice of time and can attain any planet he desires by turning the present body into ashes by self-made fire. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so self-immolation. Body is burnt to ashes, and at the time of his consciousness, whatever planet he desires, he will reach there. But Prabhupada writes in his purport, Ashtanga Yogi's highest place that they can reach is the sun god planet, the planet of the sun god. And after that, by the mercy of the sun god, he can reach the higher planets. He can reach Brahma Loka. And, after Brahma's departure, he can go along with Brahma. So, of course, there are other things that he needs to practice, right? So, this is how Dhritarashtra left his body. Now, the question is, okay, what happened to Gandhari? I need to go get her. Who's going to take care of her? That was Yudhishthira's question, for which he's answering. While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power, along with the thatched cottage, his chaste wife will enter the fire with rapt attention. Right? So,
Prabhuji,
that.
one clarification, Prabhuji.
Yes.
What is the self-made fire, Prabhuji? I just did not understand.
By the process of yogic practice, when you move the prana chakras in the body, automatically they will produce, there is fire in your body, right? There's intense heat in your body. They'll get activated and that'll burn the body by itself. You don't need external, like putting some kerosene or wood or something like that to burn this body. The body can burn by itself. That's what it means.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. So now we have this practice of sati. Sati means a wife falls into the same fire as the husband and also leaves the body. So this
Hare
was the
Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
You said the yogis go to some planet. Which is that?
The maximum they can reach, okay, is the sun planet. If the sun planet, if the state of consciousness is Paramatma realization, okay. If the state of consciousness is still Brahman realization, then they will only reach the impersonal Brahman, from which they have to fall down in the Martya Loka and practice once again the personal form of the Lord and come to the path of devotion.
Okay, Prabhu.
But I mean, that is the highest. We don't know where he reached. But at least in the stage of devotion, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, somewhere he is path now. Maybe a few births after that, he will become a pure devotee of the Lord and then practice devotion and go back home back to God. So we don't know that.
Maybe.
Because mentioned in the Bhagavatham. Okay?
Yes,
so,
Prabhu.
Gandhari was a chaste lady. She was a chaste wife. How she was chaste? Right from the day she came to know that Dhritarashtra is her husband or going to be her husband, what she did, she does not want to see the world which her husband cannot see. Dhritarashtra was blind. So she tied herself also blind. So that level of chastity she demonstrated, right? So Gandhari is also quite intelligent. She is also aware of the Shastras. So what she did, she also practiced self-immolation, meaning falling into the fire, the same fire that her husband left her body. What Prabhupada writes is, when a wife also falls into the same fire and leaves her body, she will achieve the same destination as the husband. So, for example, in the case of Prithu Maharaj and Archie also followed the same process. Prithu Maharaj also did the same thing, but Prithu Maharaj was in the state of prema and he practiced bhakti yoga and left the body. Once he left the body, what Archie did, she cried for some time. She was very upset about, oh, my husband, my dear husband left me, but I have my duty. What she did, she was not sentimental. She became very practical. She immediately took the body out and then carried that body to the top of the mountains. And there she stacked up all the wooden logs and things like that, kept the body of her husband and cremated him. After cremating, she also fell into the same fire and she also got the same destination. But if you look at the Prithu Maharaj and Achi, they were Sakshat Lakshmi Narayana. So their destination was supreme. And both Archie and Prithu Maharaj, they reached the supremost destination. But in case of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, they were not realized souls. That's why they were making many mistakes. But however, due to the mercy of another devotee like Vidura, they got better position instead of going to hell, right? So Gandhari also reached the same position by performance of such act. So Gandhari is also no more. That's what Naradaji concludes with Yudhishthira Maharaj. Okay? Is this clear? So now you should know every question Yudhishthira is asking, what Narada is answering. Okay? Yudhishthira asked, who will protect? Narada answered. Yudhishthira asked, what about their food? Narada answered. Then where did they go? Narada answered. And what they are doing now? Narada answered. Oh, okay. Should I go to collect their body after death? Narada answered. Okay, if my uncle is gone, what happened to Gandhari? Narada answered. So like that, everything is a conversation that Narada is answering. And finally, Yudhishthira is asking, okay, fine. Now we know the destination of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. What about Vidura, my uncle? What happened to him? Should I go get him? So for which Narada Muni is concluding the last two slokas. Okay?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that means Dhritarashtra reached sun planet.
No, we don't know. We don't. He is in the path of Brahman Paramatma in that realization. So that's why Prabhupada writes, according to the state of his consciousness, he reached somewhere. So somewhere he would have reached. But at least he is now in the path of devotion somewhere, right? So the next subsequent births, he will reach, he will take up devotion in a pure manner and he will practice it nicely. Okay? Okay, 59. Vidarastu tad ascharyam nishamya kurunandana harshashoka yutastasmat ghanta tirtha nishevakaha. Translation. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place for sacred pilgrimage. Now, Vidura is his own brother, right? Now, he's also got affection. For every one of us, we have this bodily affection. And devotees have more compassion. So, his compassion towards his brother. Okay. He's happy that at least he got this rather than going to hell. So, again, there's compassion, bodily attachment. Oh, my brother is no more, right? But still, Vidura is very clear. He has to go on his journey. So, he started to go to his pilgrimage. Places where great rishis and realized souls will be there. You want to go there, associate with them, hear Bhagavad Gita, and make his life perfect and leave the body. Right? So Vidura chose that method and he started to move. Okay. So someone read the highlight.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should start from sorry.
Yeah, Vidura. Actually, Vidura is saying. Vidura,
Okay.
sorry.
Sorry that he could not make his brother turn into a pure devotee. This was not done by Vidura because of Dhritarashtra's being inimical to the Pandavas who were all devotees of the Lord. An offense at the feet of a Vaishnava is more dangerous than an offense at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Therefore,
Therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only, and after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. Vidura was certainly very mortified by the death of his brother and sister-in-law, and the only remedy to mitigate such lamentation was to go out to pilgrimage. Thus, Maharaja Yudhishthira had no choice to call back Vidura, his surviving uncle.
sorry. Okay. So, two themes out of this. One, during our life, when we trouble Vaishnavas, when we give them difficulties, it becomes an offense and Lord doesn't tolerate. So when we do that, then what happens? That will reflect in our quality of consciousness and practice of devotion, and also the destination. So even though Vidura, a pure devotee of the Lord, he wanted to teach him Bhakti Yoga, but he could not, because the reactions of the offenses that Dhritarashtra was carrying was so heavy. So hence Prabhupada writes that Dhritarashtra took many such liberations, and finally he comes to the state of pure devotion where he can practice and go back home, back to Godhead. So you see, life of a devotee is not that easy. We have to have the senses controlled to a large extent. If you want to control your senses, you have to practice Bhakti Yoga properly. Eat food that is offered to the Lord, and always read Srimad Bhagavatam to keep our consciousness intact. Otherwise, we may slowly, get dragged and get deviated and move into a different path, which is not good, right? So, very important to understand about how we deal with others, our relationships, very respectfully and very clearly. Okay. The second point is, Vidura was suddenly mortified by the death of his brother and sister-in-law. So he was with grief in his heart. So what is the best way to grieve in the heart? Go to place of pilgrimage. Associate with devotees. And by their causeless mercy, that grief will go away and love of God it will manifest. Okay. So he is on a great path, and Yudhishthira understood that, okay, there's no point in going after Vidura also. So now I have to move forward with what I'm going to do. Right. So in the next sloka, you will see that Narada is now completed his mission, why he came. He taught Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he is going back to his outer space to teach other souls. Right. So thus ends this chapter 13th, where Dhritarashtra going back home after the end of his life. So in the next chapter, we're going to read what is called as disappearance of Lord Krishna. So what happened to Lord? Why he disappeared? How he brought an end to the entire Yadava community? And what was the objective behind it? And what is the futuristic plan of the Lord? So all those things we'll discuss in the disappearance of Krishna. Now, after disappearance of Krishna, what happens? This is the problem. Dharma took shelter of Krishna while he was there. Dharma means religiosity, and people practice religiosity in order to attain love of Godhead. So Dharma took shelter of Krishna while Krishna was present on this world. Now Krishna is leaving. So what will happen to Dharma? Whom will it take shelter? How religiosity will take shelter? How will it survive? Will it fall down? What is going to happen? So Naradaji is answering that when Krishna left this world, he left behind Srimad Bhagavatam. So religiosity, Dharma, took shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam in Kali Yuga. Right? So in Kali Yuga, the only hope for living entities is to take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chanting the holy name and take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no other hope. So in order to understand the grave situations of Kali, after the disappearance of the Lord, we are going to read about how Parikshit Maharaj handled Kali Yuga, how Kali Yuga manifested, what did he do with Kali Yuga, what are the characteristics of Kali Yuga, and how Parikshit Maharaj, in the process of handling Kali Yuga, he himself got affected by Kali. Of course, it was plan of the Lord, and then he went back home, back to Godhead. So we will read those two chapters after this, and more or less we are going to conclude a Canto 1 after that. Okay? So we shall end the class here. And if you have questions, we will answer those questions.
Thanks, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
I remember reading from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that in this Mishra Bhakti, Prabhu, Jnana Yogis and the Ashtanga Yogis, where they reach depends upon the amount of bhakti they have. So if the bhakti is more than 50%, they will reach Vaikuntha planets. And if the bhakti is less than that, they reach Brahman. If no bhakti at all, they will be in the material world somewhere, maybe higher planets like that. So for Dhritarashtra, it is like that, Prabhu.
No, Dhritarashtra, he will continue to be in the material world until he realizes the devotional aspect of the Lord. If he doesn't realize the devotional aspect of the Lord, he has to take many, many births. That's what we are doing, right? We are being born. We are trying to realize something about the Lord, not enough. So again, we die, again we are born. How many births you will take unless you become a pure devotee of the Lord? That means every living entity in this world do not have a choice. One day or the other, they have to practice this.
Bhakti.
This life or tomorrow's life, they have to practice. So Prabhupada says, what is intelligence? Better practice now and go back home, back to God, rather than suffering in this material world again and again.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
I had a question with respect to the spiritual fate of Gandhari here. Is it that always a wife will always be within the confines of the husband's spiritual growth, or are there cases where that has not happened? Like a woman, as in a wife, in spite of being, as in she had good spiritual content, so she surpassed the husband's spiritual growth.
Okay. So generally, Prabhu, the wife takes shelter of the husband in general.
Right.
And the husband gives a shelter to the wife in both in a material angle and spiritual angle. Okay. Now, because the husband gives a natural shelter provided for the wife, he becomes her guru. Okay. So wherever my guru's destination is, I'll reach the same destination because I'm following my guru. That is the base rule that you have to understand. Okay. So now, if my husband is a pure Vaishnava, for example, Kardama Muni, you take, he was a pure Vaishnava. You know, when Devavati asked Kardama Muni, what are you going to do? Now you're going to leave me and go away in search of love of Godhead and to do your final destiny to reach the lotus feet of Lord. What is going to be my fate? He said, since you've served me nicely, I'm going to offer you something great. What is it? Something that no one in this creation can be offered. I will offer you that. What? Love of Godhead. Straight away, I'll give you Krishna Prema. That means she did not go through the three kandas, the Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda, and straight away she's into Bhakti Yoga and love of Godhead. Like that, he offered. So that's the glory of such husband. Prithu Maharaj, that's the glory of that husband. So when a wife follows such a husband, she will reach the same destination. She got the destination of the supreme destination. So that is perfect. But sometimes what happens, wife do not know all these details and they are following their husbands who are making mistakes. Right? So if she is surrendered to that husband, she will reach that destination. So in Kali Yuga, what Prabhupada has given us? Prabhupada said, husband and wife, two individual souls. You practice accordingly to what your guru says. So for you, your guru is your destination. So practice what your guru says. And husband and wife are like two cooperative people within the family. They live together, work together, serve together in practice of devotion. So for us, in ISKCON, we follow the guru. If we follow the instruction of guru properly, the destination of guru will be our destination. That's the point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So if there are no other questions, we'll end the class. So anyway, happy Diwali to all of you. I hope you had a wonderful Diwali. And we pray to Lord Ram, pray to Lord Krishna, pray to your Guru that I should increase state of consciousness and devotion, practice of devotion, and reach the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay? तो ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरुदेव की निताय
जय
गौरवानंदे।
हरे हरे
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, वैष्णव श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम तत्सत। थैंक यू। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam. Wonderful class, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Dandavat
Happy
Pranam.
Deepavali, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranams, Prabhuji.
हरे कृष्णा धनुष प्रणाम।
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
हरे कृष्णा धनुष।
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat.
हरे कृष्णा। हरे कृष्णा।
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam Prabhu.
हरे कृष्णा धनुष प्रणाम। Okay, we'll end the class.